Hello, potassium people. Welcome back to another Banana Bites where today I need to stop. I need to stop comparing other fruits to the banana just for a bit. We might get back to corn later on, but for now, we have done too many fruit comparisons and it's completely put aside other projects because I've had to go out and try and find different fruits I haven't had and just look into the intricacies of that fruit, okay? It doesn't seem like that much, but I've been in some of the weirdest markets around. So, in the sake of what one could consider Banana Month, because this month is going to be National Banana Day on the 16th, I am going to finally push through a lot of the projects that I've been putting off for a while. Okay? Bananas in the games, right? That's coming back. Cavendish cooking with plantain guests. I have had a recording sitting in my computer for when I cooked the next dish. I was about to say the name. The next dish. And I haven't gone through and edited it yet. And then, of course, eat the banana the day of. So there are so many things that I need to do to prepare for the wonderful and glorious April 16th. But one of those things, of course, is eating bananas and asking Valve to please add the strangesecondbanana. And another thing is there are some misconceptions in the Azure Asteroid 2 lore. Recently, someone named Grassack, you probably see them in the comments quite a bit if you peruse down there from time to time, has come up with some images, a selection of tidbits to define what the Azures are. Basically, categorize them into different little nests. So I'd like to go through, kind of explain what is and isn't valid in it, and clear up some misconceptions without treading on anyone's toes. Because I know a couple of the Azures wouldn't like that. So, first things first, let me just bring up Azure Asteroid 1. Now, wow, that is not what I wanted. Azure Asteroid 1, there it is. Simply put, Azure Asteroid 1 is kind of interesting, mainly because as a person, they are the original. They are the one that came before me, before I existed. And what usually happens, just to give you the life cycle of an Azure, is we come into existence with version numbers, okay? And the one before Azure Asteroid 1, I believe, was 0, though I never met them. I don't even know if they're still around. And typically, when a new version arises, they will get rid of the old Azure in some manner or method. Azure Asteroid 1 was interesting because, I was hoping they would get run over, but all they did was break their wrists, so that wasn't, it didn't work out for me in the way I was hoping, but, tomato, tomato. So, Azure Asteroid 1 characteristics, according to Grass, is they have blue glasses, a darker outfit color scheme. That one is correct, yeah. Wears a hat but with a hoodie on top. Big fan of fighting games. The first Azure, technically not true. Same interests as other Azures, but to a lesser extent. Opinion on bananas unknown. They like them, but they never talk about them. Tends to wear dark blue, purple, and black outfits. And fun fact, Azure Asteroid 1 mysterious injury occurred a little before he was denounced by the Azure Asteroid clan. He's now actively looking for a place to stay and a job. He can set dishes on fire, I think. So, the dishes one is a nice story that I may touch into in the future, but not for now. When it comes to these different characteristics, they're pretty spot on. Azure Asteroid 1 isn't too difficult to wrap your head around. It's basically just Azure before they had real motivation. They were just kind of going through life. And because of that, Azure Asteroid 1 is a bit all over the place. They are an arsonist. They have committed a couple potential crimes, I guess you could say. and they just don't understand where they fit in to the world and society as a whole yet. So, Azure Azure 1 is what I would call the weaker, inferior version, which is in fact correct. And what we're going to see is with the later Azures, this Azure barely matters because they were supposed to be wiped out, but they stuck around. I don't know how, and here we are. So, pretty spot on with that one. Next, let's go ahead and talk about Azure Asteroid 2, and that's me this time. Yo, wow, I like the crown in the top left. First appearance unknown? Well, I can't tell you. So, characteristics, mainly yellow glasses. True. Darker outfit color scheme. Has a wide and deep knowledge of coding languages. I would say wide, but not deep. Fan of bananas. Longest lasting Azure. Wears a variety of hats. Has the most appearances in other Azure Asteroid media. Big fan of Nintendo, Mario. TF2 junkie. Fun fact, unlike this Azure's relationship with Azure Asteroid 1, he has a partnership with Azure Asteroid 3. This is why both of them appear in each other's media. And a little note down here, it's very small. It says, can wear any color of glasses. Please be careful not to mistake your Azure for another. Now, here's where things get a little interesting. So, longest lasting isn't technically correct, but I guess the most publicly known Azure would be Azure Asteroid 2. Although, a lot of people think Azure Asteroid 3 because of episode 300 and various other things that have happened. So, this Azure is typically the one that sits in an office and just types away, blah, 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 works on stuff in the background for ideas, editing, things of that nature. I would say, speaking of myself, quite literally, it's the most boring Azure. That's fine. You try and be funny. It's impossible. Man, like they got the funny gene or something. But no, in all seriousness, this Azure in particular, which is literally just me, these parts are pretty spot on. I would say there's been a recent falling out with Nintendo. They just have not held up to previous standards. And I mean, when it comes to this Azure, there's not much more to say because you nailed every aspect of it. I think the only real issue here is when it comes to the darker outfit color scheme. I think you put that for almost everyone except for the next one we're going to talk about, which is Azure Asteroid 3. So let's just hop right into that. Now, this is where a lot of misconceptions occur. Is Azure Asteroid 3, the characteristics here are that he wears yellow glasses, only wears the banana outfit, deep knowledge of bananas, a big fan of bananas, most famous and well-known Azure, that part is true, appears the second most in other Azure Asteroid media, the same interests as Azure Asteroid 2, but to a lesser extent, and a lot of people mistake him for Azure Asteroid 2 and vice versa, but they are two separate entities that only share a common goal. So here's the interesting thing about Azure Asteroid 3. They're not actually Azure Asteroid 3, because if they were, I would have been killed. Alright? But it's not me either. So it turns out, there is a facility, and I learned of this recently because of Azure Asteroid 1, where they make more Azures. But it's not the natural iteration of Azures. This is what I would say the most pure clone of Azure Asteroid 2 is the banana-focused, centralized Azure. This is the one that started this channel, hoping for Valve to add the strangesecondbanana, which, hey Valve, if you'd like it for someone to not talk about convoluted lore like this, it'd be great if you added the strangesecondbanana. Make everyone happy. But Azure Asteroid 3 is actually just Azure Asteroid 2, but with a focus on bananas. So, to be honest, Azure Asteroid 3 doesn't exist. They can't exist. Because as soon as they did, I wouldn't be here. I know for a fact that my failings to get rid of a previous Azure and Azure Azure 1, I don't think is even competent enough to attempt getting rid of someone or previous version of someone. I don't think Azure Azure 3 would fail. I just don't think that's possible. So, a good analogy for this, just real quick, I'm going to show you. So, it's similar to how one will have a copy of software, okay? Maybe it's a game. Maybe it's everyone's favorite game that gets updates all the time. And I don't know its color scheme, but we're going to go with this. I think I played this game once. Overwatch 2, okay? Classic. Wow. Phenomenal. Good stuff. Basically, you play as people that don't matter because they're not Scout TF2, and I don't think there's a banana in this game. I know you can play as a gorilla. I think his name is Winston or something. I'm not sure. But Overwatch 2, alright? Now let's say the devs want to make an update. Well, they'll go ahead and Overwatch 2 will technically be 2.1 when they inject an update from outer space. Alright? And it makes the game worse, so it really should be 1.9. But, again, I don't play the game, so I can't say for sure. So this is similar to how Azure Asteroid 3 functions. I would say this is Azure Asteroid 2.1. It's just an updated version with a better focus on bananas. Whereas me being Azure Asteroid 2 is the more neutral, the more balanced version of Azure. If they were to come up with another Azure Asteroid 2, I hope they focus on the arson part. That would be great, actually. I'd really enjoy that. So, biggest misconception there. And then about the outfit, yeah, they wear the outfit. I can't wear the outfit. I've tried, and it starts to fuse to your skin, and you get an overwhelming sense of banana love. And man, it almost killed me. It straight up almost killed me. Oh man. You know Scrooge McDuck with the giant pool of coins? Just gold? And they jump in and they swim around. Yeah, so I almost did that with the pool at Walmart. I think I was going to go to jail, but I managed to get the suit off. Maybe the suit is similar to Venom, but it's about bananas. So, Azure Asteroid 2.1, I would say, which is known as Azure Asteroid 3 because it's kind of hard to differentiate in that way, is, in fact, consumed by bananas. They are something else. They technically run this channel, so I created it, but they run it. And if I was to ever say anything bad about bananas, which I won't, there's nothing bad about bananas, they would kill me. For sure. They would find a way. Now, let's move on to the final misconception of Azure, which is the notion and idea that there is in Azure Asteroid 4. The characteristics is they have dark blue and gray glasses, a darker outfit color scheme. It copies Azure Asteroid 2's whole flow, aka they're a copycat and they're evil. They're sent by corporate, not a real disciple. The same interests as other Azures, but to a much lesser extent. That part is very true. In fact, this Azure often disguises himself as Azure Asteroid 2 to seem more friendly and attract others to him. However, he is highly unstable and dangerous. That's also true. So let me just explain what Azure Asteroid 4 is to the folks at home. Azure Asteroid 4 is essentially Azure Asteroid 1.5. So, after looking into it, this facility was taken over. I don't know by who. I don't know what's going on. Okay. I feel like Azure Asteroid 1 knows, but I haven't seen them in a while. In fact, it's weird. So, they were the last one to wear the blue hoodie and the blue shades, whatever. And I have not seen them ever since. Gosh, I don't know when. But I remember showing up to record another banana eating session. And this Azure was here. They didn't try and fight or anything. I think because I would have won. Brought back a new sword. I'll show it off sometime. But they were just eating bread, right? And they can eat bananas, but it doesn't seem like they care. It's honestly just sad. But I would say this. It seemed like most of their cognitive functions, like their ability to process information as well, is heavily reduced. I'm not sure if they're giving them free lobotomies down at the lab, but Azure Asteroid 4 is more like Azure Asteroid 1.5, and something is wrong. Something isn't quite clicking right. So, there is no Azure Asteroid 4. If there was, me and the potential Azure Asteroid 3 would just be gone. But, yeah, I'm not sure what you can even say about this character that would make it seem safe. I would say if you notice they're having a hard time eating a banana and they're wearing mostly gray or black, that's a pretty surefire way to tell. So that is the misconceptions and just like overview of the Azures. So now you know there is no true Azure Asteroid 3. It's just someone who calls himself Azure Asteroid 3, but is actually just the more banana flavored version of me. I'm gonna eat this banana now. Because that was a lot of talking. I bet you feel like you wasted your time. I bet you wish you could have gone and seen the Minecraft movie so you could laugh about Chicken Jockey and Flint and Steel. I saw that movie, by the way. Man, you know what? I'm so glad Steve announces every single item he uses in that movie. Otherwise, I'd have no idea what I was looking at. It didn't look that good. Regardless, it's banana time. This is so good. Yeah, Azure Asteroid 1.5 sucks. If they don't like bananas, I don't know. We should get rid of them. Hmm. Well, potassium people, that's it. You're caught up now. But I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.